Going, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Shafer. Welcome to anywhereblog.net. I hope you're having a fantastic day. So today, as you can tell by the title, we are going to be discussing fear, the black beast itself. So let's get right down into brass tacks, shall we? So, why discuss fear? What is important about discussing fear? Well, of course, fear is extremely prevalent. I feel an extreme amount of fear. What if I don't, what if this video isn't good? What if people don't enjoy it? What if people decide to just flame war and troll the whole thing? What if nobody likes it and I never make another video again and I lose all my motivation and everything collapses and Katie leaves me and the whole world just falls apart and I die on the streets? You know, all that kind of stuff. So you get it for just about everything you do. And fear is so prevalent, it's really important to understand how to work with it. And hitchhiking, if you are planning on doing that, is a great way to get some practice at understanding and working with fear. And, you know, fear can be extremely overwhelming. It can keep you from doing things that you want to, or at least it can be used to keep you from doing things that you want to, if we want to be more accurate. And it was used to keep us as children from doing the things that we wanted to do from our parents or our teachers or our society in general. We were kept, when we were most vulnerable, away from doing the things that we really loved and were interested and passionate about, and we were taught to fear this world instead. And so now we're kind of able to stretch out a bit because we're big and can defend ourselves, but most of us, myself included, still have those habits that were forced upon us as children, like ingrained in our brain, if you know what I mean. So we're going to be, it's kind of important because you don't want to have like fear. You don't want to be the guy who never goes out and does anything. And good things in life, this is my complete amateur, don't even trust me opinion on this whole thing, but it seems to me like every good thing in life comes with a huge amount of fear. If you go and ask the girl out on the date that you're really interested in, there's a huge amount of fear there. You don't know if she's going to say yes, or if she'll spit on your face, or if she'll think you're a creep, or what will happen. And who knows, maybe she was the best girl, and maybe you're actually an asshole, and you're just convincing yourself that you're not an asshole, and you're doing this, that, and the other thing, and now she'll be able to, you know, and the whole world will just collapse again, and you'll die on the streets, of course, because it seems to be how fear always ends up, dying on the streets. So it's something that always comes with good action. Good action always has a lot of fear attached to it, and if we don't take that good action, then we're not going to be happy. And so it's important to understand fear because it's always a barrier to good action. So that is a good enough reason to get into fear. So you may have noticed that the title of this video is Working with Fear or Understanding Fear. And that might be a bit different than what you see everywhere. There's certain philosophies like Buddhism and whatever other thing-ism you want to call it that believes that you should throw away your fear, ignore your fear, forget your fear. Even the Christians have similar ideas of getting rid of fear and having fear be, you know, gone forever and just completely growing Phoenix style away from fear and never interacting with it again. This is, of course, complete and utter nonsense. You're never going to get rid of fear unless you dissociate yourself from your emotions, which is never a good thing to do. See psychology. You will always feel fear for things that are scary. The point is to understand where that fear comes from so you can work with it and act anyway. Like I said in the AMA, you know, fear never goes away. You just get better at taking it out on dates. So, I mean, you will not banish fear. Don't try to banish fear. You're on the pedestal, you're about to jump because you're trying skydiving or whatever it is you're trying. You're gonna feel a lot of fear because your body's like, oh my god, you know, oh no, you know, but I'm gonna die, I'm gonna fall all the way to the bottom and crack, you know, but you still know with your conscious mind that you're safe, and you can say, I know you feel scared, but it's okay, we're gonna act anyway, and then you act and it's okay and you're glad you did. But trying to banish fear will just get you running around in circles and you won't ever do it. You will never ever banish fear unless you turn off your emotions, and then you're going to have way more problems in the end. So do not try to banish fear. And it is not courageous to act with no fear. It is courageous to act even though you're fearful. That is courage. Courage isn't, well, I don't feel any fear, so I can do anything. I'm just going to repeatedly poke myself in the eye now for the rest of eternity. No, courage comes from feeling fear and doing the right thing anyway. So that's really important. You don't even want to banish fear. I know it's so alluring, these people that are like, oh yeah, you just get rid of fear, man. You know, but the point isn't just to get rid of fear. That's a terrible idea for any emotion. Don't try to banish any of your emotions. Work with them, understand them. So that's the point. So there's a big difference between physical. Okay, so the memory card just got full, so we're gonna start where I kind of was. So we were talking about physical fears. So there's a big difference between physical fears and societal fears. Now the main difference that is pretty obvious is that a physical fear is like, you know, you're riding your bike and you hit a bump on the grass and you flip over and holy shit, what do you do? And you fall or cry or whatever it is that you need to do. I usually cry. So, but that is a physical fear, and that's not something we really need to talk about because, I mean, the brain takes control at that point and just says, okay, you're gonna fall and cry. So that's not something that we really have much control over, so there's really no point in discussing that. What we're more interested here is societal fears. Now, what do I mean by societal fears? The reason that we fear so much is because we live in a crazy fucking world. We live in a literally insane society, and I don't mean just the United States, I mean all over the place, everywhere. Humans are completely insane. We are in a pre-civilized world, and that is really, really fundamental to grasp. So we feel fear because we are afraid to get killed for our actions, for our beliefs, for whatever. We are afraid to get murdered because of the ideas in our heads, and that is important to understand. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when 1,000 years ago, if you, let's say you were living in, I'm not going to get the years right, but let's say you were living in super Christian times and you were an atheist and you were coming out as an atheist, there's a good chance that you would get killed for coming out as an atheist back in those days, right? There's a good chance. Now today we don't have that same worry, but we do still have that in our brain. Our ancestors that survived were the ones that didn't rock the boat too much. And that's important to remember. I'll repeat that again. Our ancestors that survived were the ones who didn't rock the boat too much. They might have rocked it a little bit, but they didn't rock it too much. And that's really important to remember, because if you rock the boat too much, you're dead. So that's essential to understand, that we live in a society where if you do, like if you go too outside of the norm, if you bring up the evils of our society, or even if you act too strangely or you wear the wrong colored hat or whatever, you could get killed. And definitely in our past, in our collective past, you could get killed, and it was much more likely. And in most parts of the world, it's still very likely. Now that's very important to understand, and maybe you can feel why fear is maybe not so inherently irrational, right? Yeah. Maybe it's not just something to banish. Maybe it's something that might have a good point or two to bring up. Now, what's really important is that when we were children, our fear was used against us. Our natural fear was used to control us. Our parents, if you have bad parents, if you have great parents, that's awesome. Most people don't, but if you have great parents, that's great. And to your parents, they're awesome people. But most parents are not so great. And teachers and our churches and our governments and media and whatever has influenced you in this way used your fears to get you to do things that they liked. And that's really important to understand, that your schools, your teachers, your parents, something going on outside, so I'm a little distracted. Taught you to fear the things that they didn't like. So if your society, everybody wears a red hat, and you are really interested in wearing blue hats, then your teachers or whoever, your parents, will make you fear blue hats. And that's really important to understand and to grasp, because there's people going on here. It's hard to talk about this kind of stuff with people going in and out. Okay, so so we were used. People who were 5 times our height yelled at us and threatened to hurt us, and oftentimes hurt us for doing things that they didn't like. Now that's important to remember. And maybe your fear is trying to protect you from people 5 times your size hitting you, hurting you, maybe leaving you to fend for yourself in the wilderness like happened so often in the past. Maybe that fear is trying to protect you from that. So that's important to think about as well. So our fear is not crazy. Our fear is not something to just banish. Our fear is something to listen to, because it has protected us from our fellow human beings, which are the most dangerous creatures to our livelihood. People are the main killers of people, and that is so important to remember. So when you're having fear about talking to the girl, just remember that there's a long history of fear being very helpful for people. So that's important to remember. Now, we're going to be talking about how to understand fear better now that we know what fear is. Fear is our legitimate response to crazy people maybe wanting to kill us. That's so important to understand, because so once you understand that that's where fear comes from, how do you get on? Because we still want to do things. We still do want to ask the girl out. We don't want fear to hold us back from that. We don't want fear to keep us from doing the things that we really legitimately love in this life, in the short life that we have. So how do we go out there and do the awesome, grand, wonderful things that we still really want to do? And these are some tips that worked for me. Who knows if it'll work for you? These aren't like the Bible of fear, you know. This is some stuff that worked for me. A great book is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, which is a lot of where this comes from. I also, a great website is freedomainradio.com, a lot of great content from there about fear, and just all over the web. The 4-Hour Workweek goes into fear as well, and it's very, very helpful books. But what works for me is, one, understanding the worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario is like what I talked about earlier. You know, you ask the girl out, she spits on you. Some guys think that you're like trying to drug her or something, so they beat you up and they throw you out back. And then like your parents walk by and they're like, oh, you know, we're never going to talk to you again. And then you're for some reason your employer walks by and is like, you're fired, and you know, then you lose your job and you lose your house and everything goes to shit, and you're on the street begging for change and dancing for nickels, and it's just awful and terrible and the whole world sucks. That's a bit exaggerated, but understanding that chain of the worst case scenario and accepting that I guess it's a possibility, that's a little less likely. What's more likely is like that she'll say no, and she'll say something humiliating that'll really hurt. And then you'll be like, shit, and then for a day or two you'll just be stinging, right? And that sucks, right? And that's perfectly possible. Understanding that fear, and understanding that that's a worst case scenario, and accepting that it's a possibility. Don't do this whole like, no, it could never happen kind of thing. It's nonsense, and that's just going to raise your stress level, which is going to probably make her nervous. So understanding the likelihood of a worst case scenario and the likely worst case scenario is important to do. So just talk to yourself about what is likely to happen, and the worst thing you can imagine, and accept that as a possibility, and be like, yeah, it's okay, I guess that could happen. Then the next thing is I have notes here. And then you want to, this is going to sound all sorts of new agey and cheesy as fuck, but you want to talk with your fear and really understand your fear. And just have a conversation with your fear and let it know, that it's not so bad. Let it know, hey, I know we're, like, recently I did a flying trapeze class, and it was a lot of fun. It was also scary as hell. I didn't even want to keep doing it after a few tries because it was really terrifying. So, after, you're climbing up to the top of this thing, and it's like 3 stories tall, and you're just looking down, and you're going to be jumping off of this platform very soon. And that extreme amount of fear is coming up. And so I go through the worst case scenario, that I fall. There's a big net there, so it wouldn't hurt. And they have a harness attached to you, so I'll probably fall in there. I'll be scared shitless as I go down, and I'll probably laugh when I'm down on the net. That's the worst case scenario. Accept that as a possibility. I'll be humiliated because I'll look like a wussy or whatever. That's the worst case scenario. So accept that as a possibility, and then I just say, hey, it's very unlikely that anything that bad is going to happen. If that kept happening, then this place wouldn't be able to stay open and wouldn't be able to make money because they keep getting sued. It's got great reviews on Yelp. A lot of people who had a lot of fun. I know it's really scary, but it's really safe, and I understand that. And I understand that you're scared because you're trying to keep me safe and all that, but really it's not so bad. And I think it would be a lot of fun, and I think we would be disappointed if we didn't go do it. And you might say, but I'm scared. And you just keep talking to it and say, hey, I do understand that you're scared, but we kind of agreed to go do this, and we're up here now, and if you really didn't want to do this, you should have brought it up sooner, And just talking with the fear and treating it like an actual human being, and not just trying to pretend it's some animal or some thing that you can just turn off at will, because it's not, and you don't have that kind of power. And just treat it kindly, and it'll treat you kindly. And then it doesn't go away. That's the important thing to understand. Is it simply doesn't go away, right? And the goal is not to get it to go away. The goal is to eventually, after you've had some reasonable amount of time to talk with your fear, you jump anyway. You just go for it, right? Okay, so it did it again. So we're back. So the point is that fear doesn't just go away. You don't just build it up to a point where you just don't feel it anymore, and then you can go and act. You don't wait until the fear is gone before you act. You act even though you feel the fear, and that, my friends, is the definition of courage. Courage is not getting rid of your fear and then acting. Courage is acting even though you feel fearful. So you're afraid to ask the girl out, you go and you ask her out anyway, and that's how she gets so turned on, because you're so damn courageous. And courage is a great thing that's not talked about very much anymore, but it's very, very helpful. So the point is not to get rid of your fear and have it disappear somehow or ignore it or whatever. The point is to understand your fear, know that it's there for a helpful reason, and then fundamentally go and do the thing you want to do anyway. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for watching. As always, this is a lot of fun. Go out there and do what you want to do, even though you feel fear. And if you have any more questions about this kind of stuff is really fascinating to me. I like the emotional stuff a lot more. We've been talking a lot about like the physical actions, like what you should bring, and who to talk to, and that kind of stuff is interesting, but fundamentally it's not very universal. It's only very specific to hitchhiking, which, let's face it, most people aren't going to be that interested in hitchhiking. But to me, what gets me in the gut is the emotional stuff, which you can take even after hitchhiking, and I know because I am still using it very well. And hitchhiking can be a great practice for that, but fundamentally it doesn't need to be hitchhiking. It can be whatever the hell you want. So, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and toodaloo. See you guys.